Welcome to Pacific Northwest Worm Farming. Here we are trying to take worms and essentially recycle your waste products into something good for the environment. We take carbon products such as paper, shredded leaves, sticks, tree shreddings, cardboard, anything that you can think of that comes from a tree-based product, and we recycle that. We do that with a combination of coffee and food waste leftovers. Two really big things right now that are just going to landfills and really helping pollute the environment. Now, you're saying, Brandon, how are those organic things polluting the environment? Well, when they go to the landfill and they get all mixed in together, they create gases like methane, other things that will damage our atmosphere. And what we do is we transform those into a good, hearty product that will essentially knock your plant's socks off, quite literally. Our worm castings are very unique in the different mixtures that we use of our compost. We are currently sampling several types of compost. Currently, we have a cow manure, a pig manure, and an all-vegan compost. Let me explain a little bit about those. What I have done is I have taken a mixture of coffee grounds that were used from local coffee shops, and I've mixed that and the manure together and aged them for 90 days inside a tumbling composter. I added things like shredded cardboard, shredded paper that I've cut here myself, and I mix that all up to make a nice hearty compost. I then take that and I feed it to one of our 3 varieties of worms. Why 3 varieties? Well, I like to stick it all out there, and I have 2 different types of bait worms, European night crawlers and some specialty worms called Louisiana swamp crawlers. I happen to pick both those up from Mission Worms. And then I have red wigglers, which are my main composting worm. They transform the most amount of product. We'll get a look at what they've been doing and how I've been getting them from the product, because once you get all of this together and it's starting to look like a really nice quality kind of material, you have to think, those worms are tiny. How do I get them out? Well, we made a couple of hand sifters to start off with. Just something simple to kind of practice with. Now that we've kind of gotten the system and a source product down, we have an idea of how to do things better, faster, a little bit less manual labor. To do that, we had to sift through every piece of material, pull out big chunks, save those for the side, and now we have used those materials to create a reclaim bin. Excuse me. In the reclaim bin, it is all red wigglers. It is just material that has not been broken down by them. All of the other worms probably will be sifted out, but their contents will go back into their same mixes and continue to be broken down by them. More material, more food, everything gets added in there, but they are much slower so far from what I've seen at breaking material down. Now, that being said, I've only gone through 1 full cycle of red wigglers. I kind of learned a couple of secrets from people that I've talked to, things that I've read online, and I'll show you a couple of those things here later on in the video. But if you're doing a very good, hearty quality casting, or even just something for your home garden, I'm going to show you how you can turn your food waste, your lawn clippings, extra coffee grounds, if you're a big coffee drinker, even if it comes from the little K-cups, you can still pull those open, dump out your coffee grounds. with the coffee grounds, they are considered a nitrogen source because they are a nitrogen heavy bean. They've already been ground down for you in most cases, so they're already a nice particle for the worms. They not only work well in composting for heating up your compost pile, but they also grow a good bacteria on them that the worms love to eat. I myself go through them by the 5-gallon bucket that I locally source at some of the local coffee shops. So, I'll give you an inside look here in a few minutes on how I've been baiting my worms out of my compost and my finished castings to boot. Okay, so here we have the bait bucket. Already got some nice good worms growing in it. Got some little bit of food waste showing up right there. You know, what I have in here is a 5-gallon bucket with holes in it. In the bottom, a couple on the sides. And it's just got a bunch of food waste in the bottom, and then a little bit of worm castings. Well, a lot of bit of worm castings actually around the rim and edge. If you look real close, you can see a couple of the baby worms, a couple of the big worms crawling around up here. I like to keep this bin nice and moist. And what will happen with this bin, once we complete harvesting from this tub of castings, is that it will get put into another tub, and it will be a restarter or a refresher batch of food for other worms. And what I did was I had kept these couple of tubs that we sifted out. Here's our finished product, but I kept them out of the system for a little while, no food, no nothing, and kind of got the worms a little hungry. And then what you do is you place it right here in the bottom of your tub, and it just kind of sits there for a little while, and they all start to head over towards your bait bin. Just like we have it set up here, you kind of start drawing the moisture up out with these plastic bags that I've kind of set along the perimeter. This one's kind of fallen down a little bit, so I need to make a little bit of a readjustment here. So what I like to do is I like to kind of tuck this guy in and then put this guy right here and make sure I just kind of have a somewhat seal around it. It's not perfect, it doesn't have to be. I could tape it off if I want to, but the best way to do this is to just give it enough to create that greenhouse setup, and then all of the moisture starts getting pulled up. Well, as it goes up, it goes into the bucket, driving the worms into the bucket. To do this, I have a small space heater. I was quite fortunate to find this at a local store for very cheap. And as you can see right here, it has several different settings along with a fan setting to help keep the entire worm farm cooled down, or heated up in this case, because as you can see, it's snowing outside, or it was. But here on the worm. Okay, so like as promised, today we're going to talk a little bit about bait buckets. Now, my bait bucket's a little big, but I didn't really have a lot of choices out here, so I had a lot of product to process, and it was just easier to use a bucket that already had some holes in it. So, it doesn't look like we got anything on the lid, but if we look down in here, you can see all the way around here we have worm castings, worms, everything, all the way around. All the way down. You can definitely see that these ones have had some time. Very adult-sized worms. Bet you if we kind of poke around here. Oh yes. Very gross, but very a very large amount of red wigglers. as you can see, kind of squirming all around in here. But we're not looking. Okay, now that we're going again, I'm going to take this little top layer right here and kind of, yeah, not a whole lot left in here, so I'm going to dump the rest of these worms. Take a little joyride all the way up here, pretty close to where their new home's going to be. Now, all I've really been doing was I used a little bit of rotten food, and I have this 5-gallon bucket that was already broken from service, and I drilled some holes in it about 1/4 inch diameter, and I just kind of let the food rot in there the last couple of weeks. The worms come up to the surface, they find their way into the holes, and then they never want to leave because it's like a delicious food heaven for them. Now, suffice it to say, there are going to still be a few worms left in here. I will try to get most of them, but it'll take me a little bit. A couple more spins on the bait bucket on this one, and we will have most of the worms out of here. But for today's purposes, I'm going to use what I've harvested and start one more red wiggler bin. Now that I've kind of knocked this down, what I can do is go ahead and put the bucket back in here, let it sit for a little bit longer while I get everything set up, and then we'll go ahead and we'll start to migrate everything into this tub. I'll see you in a few minutes. We don't let anything stop us from turning your waste into a very beautiful product to help possibly feed your family or others. Several videos I have done now with this. If you want, you can check out our Instagram at Pacific North. You can check out our Instagram at PNW_worm_farming and see what it looked like from the beginning, how we started, and how we've gone about building up so far. So from here on out, it's going to be all about seeing when we can start the next bin.